Hello all, welcome to the new video in the purchase module. Today I'm going to talk about the freight and what is freight, what it's all about, and how you can apply freights into the marketing document. Especially today I'm going to talk about the purchase. All right, so let's see a business scenario that where your company buys and sell items throughout the country, right? And while the items are shipped to your warehouse, you get charged for the shipping and delivery. You want to record these charges as well to have the inventory unit costs reflect the additional charges, right? Some items that you sell are high value, require insurance during the shipping. You charge your insurance from the customer with a fixed amount. However, you do not want the insurance cost to affect your unit price. So the freight definition would be something like it is a charge paid for the carriage or the transportation of goods by air, land, or sea, anything, any mean. You can also use freight to apply to any additional expenses that are not part of the basic item price, such as insurance of the good. Freight can be added on any purchase or sales document, as I mentioned already. And now let's talk about the activation and using the freight in SAP Business One. So let's switch into the SAP right now. So before using the freight in your system, you have to set up that into your document setting inside the system initialization. And here is manage freight in the document. The one thing is like once the document is created by the freight, you cannot uncheck this one, and you have to use the freight. So when you open the freight here, right, you see different names can be defined with the different details. I'm gonna go through the details one by one, right? So this is the freight. It's called the freight setup window, and you need to create row for each type of the freight charge you plan to track, right? In our business, the example that we consider is like we would need to set up two rows, right? I'm gonna talk about one for the insurance and one for the shipping, right? So we can create one. So after you enter the name, right, let's say first we said it's shipping, and you can select a revenue account. It's basically which account you have to take the revenue on, right? So you can take I'm picking anyone right now, and you can add the expense account as well. Now, so revenue account is basically used in the sales document, right? And the expense account used in the purchase documents. So after selecting these two accounts, you also select a default tax group for incoming and outgoing document to be used. If one of those is not default in the business master data, so you can use the output tax. Let's say I'm gonna use A2, and I'm gonna say V1 for the input tax. Now there's also the 6 kind of distribution rule from different kind of for the different purpose business process, right? And you can select one of them for each line. A distribution method is used when the freight is entered in the document header and it's set up to affect the stock. We will see an example in like a couple of minutes. In the, let's say in our method, like the shipping is, let's say we are gonna use by the weight, right? Now then we have the rounding method. In the rounding method, you specify the required portion of the freight to apply when you partially copy a base document to the target document. So for example, if you created the GRPO and you assign the freight, and when you're creating the AP invoice based on that GRPO, so it should be decide like how it should be calculated the freight into the target documents, and I'm going to show you that also later. So let's say first right now let's check total. Then you can check the last purchase price checkbox, and if you wish the freight charges to be added to the item last purchase price in the purchase document. So then one thing to keep in mind in here is like if you select the last price as selected in here, then and if then you have to select a distribution method. So for example, if there is no distribution method right now and you're going to update it, it's going to give you a message that column, in the distribution method column, select a value other than none. So you have to select one of them. That's why we checked as a weight for our distribution method before. Now you can create it, right? You can also assign a distribution rule or the project code to the assigned to the freight revenue or the expense account row in the journal entry. The one thing that we have to know about is that the freight charges that affect stock, such as shipping in our example, used in the document with the inventory item will not appear as a separate row in the journal entry. Therefore, no distribution rule or the project code will be assigned in that document. So as per our business scenario, we're going to define one. So let's add the insurance one, add any revenue account in here. The expense account could be anything again. Then 81 taxes, the fixed amount, and you can also, this one is have no quantity because it's just insurance, right? And then the drawing method could be total as well, and then you can just update it here. We can change the distribution rule of the shipping from weight to quantity instead of weight, because we're gonna ship an inventory based item which should have a stock. So that would help us in the marketing document to count and assign the values based on the quantity. Now let's talk about the distribution method into the freight, right? And how it's gonna be distributed into the whole document that you're gonna create. So for example, if you added 2 items into your marketing document, and so then how, according to the distribution method, how your freight should be calculated. So for example, for first one is none, right? So based on none, the freight expenses are not distributed to the line items at all. It would be 0. Then the quantity based on, then the distribution to line items according to the relation of quantity per line. So for example, if you select a quantity 100 and 20, and then it will be, the freight would be 10 and 20 in the quantity per line, right? Then the volume would be based on the volume per line item. The weight would be weights per line item, and equally means doesn't matter about the quantity or anything, it will be divided equally into each line. Then the row total would be the expense are distributed to the line items according to the relation of the row totals of line items. So that's how it's behaved overall per the distribution methods. So that's why instead of our shipping should be based on the quantity, like how many items we are shipping from one place to another. So that's why instead of weight, we're going to use quantity as our distribution method. So it should be calculated properly into the marketing document when we will use it. Now let's talk about the drawing methods in the freight setup. So there are 4 different type of drawing methods, and it's have the different purpose in the marketing documents. So first one is like none, quantity, total, and all. So basically what happened is, like when you use the draw document wizard to copy the one document to the other, for example, if you're creating the GRPO, right, based on if you're creating a GRPO and you selected one of the project and you want to copy it from your purchase order, let's say, and you select this one. So if you're using the draw document wizard, right, to copy from one document to another the way we did, then freight entered into the row label will be copied to the target document. So whatever we define the freight into the purchase document will be copied into the good receipt PO as well in the line document in the row label, right, in the target document. So the drawing method determines how the system copies the freight expenses or the revenues from base document to the target document in case you only partially copy the row items. So we will have the 4 different kind of freight in here, right? Yeah, 4 different kind of freight. So if you talk about the all, then it means the system copies the entire amount the first time you copy any partial amount of the line item. So if you are just, let's say you draw the data in here, right? And if you are copying everything in here, then the freight would be get copied everything for the first time. If you're making like, so for example, if your purchase order is based on the 20 quantity and there is a freight defined, then when you are only making the GRPO for 5 quantity, but the freight would be get copied, the total freight would be get copied even if you taking the partial quantity of that. If the drawing method is none in here, then it simply mean like nothing is taken into the target document, it's not gonna copy. If it's selected by the quantity, so if you only partially copy a line item, then the system copied the proportional amount based on the quantity you copied. So if you have the freight for 10 euro for 5 quantities, so it means like, let's say 2 euro per quantity, and then when you copying the freight only 2, then it will be calculated as 4 into the freight in your document. And if you're gonna select the total, so if you copy a line item only partially, the system copies the proportional amount based on the total you copied. So when you copy the outstanding line items, the system copies the remaining amount on that. So the only difference between the total and quantity into the drawing methods is like when you're making the partial document based on one document to another document, then for the total it's gonna be calculated the amount based on the total you copied, and if you're gonna making the quantity based on the quantity, then it will use the amount based on the quantity you copied, and that's how it's going to calculate it for both. So now let's finalize the write and see the effect into the marketing document. So in our in our scenario, we're gonna assume that we're gonna calculate the shipping based on ourselves, based on the row we will enter, but the insurance is gonna cost 10 euro, which would be fixed for the revenue and for the expense both. So we define the 10, and then now we're gonna create a we're gonna start from the GRPO, and I'm gonna show you how it's gonna affect into the journal entry as well. So let's create one good receipt PO document for this. Now let's say I'm gonna use this printer. So once you selected this item, you saw that in the header label of the freight, you see the 10 euro, which is coming from the insurance, right? And it is the defined net amount that we're gonna use for every item in the good receipt PO, right? That we are paying. So we just that's why the freight right now is 10, but there is no freight for the shipping. So for the shipping, if there is nothing, there is no column you found into the document, then you have to enable the freights. So you can define up to 3 freight 1, freight 2, and freight 3. So let's enable them. We're gonna only add 2 of them because we're using shipping and insurance. So you select the first freight as a insurance, and you say, okay, there is a additional insurance for 10 euro for this particular item, and you're saying that okay, for the shipping it's going to cost 5 euro additionally. So there was 10 before, and now you added 5 and 10, so now it's 25, the total amount of the freight. And if you're going to see, then the net amount in here you can only see 10 because that's the header level document, and if you want to add it or change the freight, then you have to add it into the row label. All right, okay. So now when you add the GRPO, it's gonna add with the freight, but we are not using the perpetual inventory, so there would be no journal entry found. So now you can copy this document to the AP invoice, and when you copy this document with the total amount, with the total quantity, not the partial one, then you will see that the freight is here 25 euro, which is already defined, and you will see there is insurance which was already defined in here. So it was the fixed insurance amount that we was talked about. Now if you add into here the AP invoice, now let's see the journal entry. So if you see, and I will show you the difference between them. So you see that it's created for 145 total, in which this is the normal tax for the for the item, which is like 20.45, right? So this is the 20.45. Then this is the amount of your item, and now this is the freight for two different expense account that we have chosen into our freight. So if you go to your setup, general, freight, then you will see there is two account that we have selected for the expense account gonna use in the purchase documents. So that's how it's gonna reflect per line into your purchase document when you create an AP invoice out of that. So this was a basic introduction about the freight and how you can use them into the purchase module, especially into the AP invoice, and how and which scenario you have to pick in order to select the particular freight. Basically, you can make your own freight based on the different scenarios. Like right now, we only handle the shipping and insurance of that particular item, but you can make it your own and you can try it out by yourself. And if you have any question, you can comment down and we will solve it together. Thank you.